you all today. We're beginning with a psalm today, Psalm 8. But this is for the record music. That's just a liturgical note that's added to many of the psalms. A psalm of David. Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory in the heavens. Through the praise of children and infants, you established a stronghold against your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger. When I consider the work of your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you set in place, what is mankind that you're mindful of them, human beings that you care for them? You have made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet. All flocks and herds, the animals of the wild, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea, all that swims the paths of the sea. Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Such a powerful, powerful psalm. One of my favorite, I think. There was a time, I can still recall it, when I went to God to pray. I like to pray. I love to pray. I just find so much strength for living, for praying. I love connecting. It's not like I connect fully with God, but I do touch the hem of God, and that's enough. But one day I went, after visiting a parishioner, and started praying, and I started complaining in my prayer. The Israelites were said in Exodus to murmur against God. I visited a parishioner that seemed to have endless troubles. Suffering is but for a moment, I've always thought, you know. It's a momentary affliction. We go through periods of suffering. We walk through dark valleys, but the Lord is with us. And in time, those sufferings resolve and the storm stops and peace comes again. Tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. Earl Detman Swinhoe. Anyway, he wrote that. There was a title of a book he wrote, I think. Tough times don't last forever, but tough people do. Well, this guy's trouble seemed to be lasting forever. And I felt the heavy burden of his pain. I mean, he had a company and he was well off. But his daughter, who he loved with all his heart, married a minister. And their first baby was expected with such joy, and cord wrapped around the baby's neck. He was born with severe mental disability and physical disability. And they would have to take care of him the rest of his life. And her husband, the minister, just couldn't take this. And so he abandoned. He agonized for his daughter every day. She had a master's degree, but she had to work, they had to get care. It was just a chore. And then, if that were not enough, his youngest son, he had an older son, but he expected his youngest son and his older son to take over his company someday. And his youngest son was riding a motorcycle and he had an accident, had a closed head injury, and he was disabled and mental and physical. And he was the person that I think I've quoted him before said, that is, I wish to God I'd never had experiencing this pain. Top of that, his wife had dementia. She really didn't know what was going on, which was a blessing, but he was bearing all these burdens by himself. I mean, it just seems like it was trouble after trouble after trouble. And I couldn't understand this. I mean, why would God do this to me? I just couldn't grasp it. And so I went to God with that kind of complaint. I didn't start with praise or anything. I didn't say, oh Lord, my Lord, how majestic is your name and on the earth. I said, God, why? Why? If we're your children and you love us, why would you allow somebody this kind of deep suffering that goes on and on and on? I mean, what are you going to do about this? I had the audacity to demand that God waits. And it was then that the words of Job came to me, as if God were that God spoke to Job, as if God were speaking them to me that very day. I still remember them. I still do. I wonder if it was like this when God spoke these words to Job. It was the same thing, the same experience I had. Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. I was in a storm. Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone where the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for glory and joy? Who shut up the sea behind the doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garments and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, this far you may come and no farther, here is where your proud waves halts. Have you ever given orders to the morning or shown the dawn its place, that it might take the earth by the edges and shake the wicked out of it? The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Its features stand out like those of a garment. The wicked are denied their light, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you journeyed to the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been shown to you? Have you seen the gates of the deepest darkness? Have you comprehended the vast expanses of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. What is the way to the abode of lights, and where does darkness reside? Can you take them to their places? Do you know the paths to their dwellings? Surely you know, for you were already born. You have lived so many years. Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or seen the storehouses of the hail, which I reserve for times of trouble, for days of war and battle? What is the way to the place where lightning is dispersed, or the place where the east winds are scattered over the earth? Who cuts a channel for the torrents of the rain and the path of the thunderstorm, to water the land where no one lives, an uninhabited desert, to satisfy a desolate wasteland and make it sprout with grass? Does the rain have a father who fathers the drops of dew, from whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens, when the waters become hard as stone, when the surface of the deep is frozen? And I find this poem was ever written in all because I have to go out and look at the night sky at times to remember who I am, and to hear the voice of God, especially when He wants to chide me for my umbrage and my lack of humility. But He always does it in a loving way, actually in a very glorious way. He gives me stars and moons. That's what it does. You know, forever it's been thought that the center of the Milky Way, there's a black hole. And this one is humongous, 4 million times the size of our sun. Can you even grasp such dimensions? I can't. But astronomy is changing their mind about this, and recent research suggests, I guess more than suggests, they're all becoming more convinced of this, that at the center of our galaxy is dark matter. not a black hole, but dark matter. What is dark matter? 68% of our universe is dark energy. 27% of it is dark matter. Less than 5% of it is the matter that you and I can see. Dark matter and dark energy both are invisible things. Invisible. We cannot see them. We know there's mass there. It cannot be seen by our eyes. Oh, less than 5% of the entire universe is stuff that we can see. And that includes all the stars, moons, and planets in the vastness of all the galaxies, the billions of galaxies, trillions of stars and moons and planets. We can see that. And the vast majority of the universe is matter that is invisible to us. I think that it is important for us to look at the night sky and realize that all that we know is less than 5% of what there is to know. And that's even imagining the billions and trillions of stars and galaxies and planets that exist. All that there is for us to know is less than 5% of all reality. So I always say this reality, this earth is real, but the really real is so far beyond this. So far beyond this. Oh Lord, how majestic is your name in all of the earth. I don't understand suffering and pain, but in the dimensions of the universe that God has created, and in the vast amount of it, almost 95% of it that we cannot see, God has wonders for us someday to behold. Now we see in a mirror darkly, but then we shall know. Now we see in part, but then we shall see in whole. That causes me to pause and realize exactly what God was saying to Job and me the day I started my prayer with a complaint. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth and called the morning stars to sing together and all the angels sang with joy? Where were you? Who are you, person, to do this? As I said, I love to pray, and through prayer I feel like I touched the hem of the robe of God, but I'm not sure how much of it I touched. But however much of it I touch in prayer is more than I can even begin to hold within me. I mean, it is so powerful, and it is so greater than myself and the world that is all around me. It's a way for my mind to release that which is temporal, that which is earthly and earthly bound, and to transcend, if but for a moment, to transcend all of this and see the greater glory of God. What a powerful thing it is. That's what prayer does for us. Prayer is not just asking God repeatedly, God, give me this. God, give me that. God, do this for me. God, do that for me. I do that a lot, and I think it's legitimate, and I believe that he hears and answers every prayer. And I believe when he says, all you have to do is ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open. That's all. I do believe that God does that for us. But I also believe that prayer is so much more than that. It's being clasped by the hand of God and his love and mercy flowing through us in such powerful ways that we just can't hardly contain it all. We can't contain it all. We have to let go. We have to release it. And I found that looking at the night sky, like the psalmist, can give us that same transcendent awe. Verses 3 and 4. When I consider the work of your hands, moons and stars, which you have established. What is man that you're mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him? Looking at the night sky can give us a sense of transcendent awe. So I think we ought to take time in our lives to do more of that. I think that is an important thing to do. I have never forgotten the time in Gonzales, which is a city in West Texas. And it's a town in West Texas. And we have a church camp there. And we drive 4 hours, 5 hours from Houston to get to Gonzales and go to this camp. And one night on the hillside, we all set out, and the whole Milky Way was visible to us. I mean, it was just a whole expanse of it. I had never seen it that. Like the pictures that you see through the Hubble telescope, that was visible to us that night. I realized I've been living in Houston too long. I had been looking only at the streetlights and not seeing beyond the brilliance of the night. And we sat there for hours. Kids brought out their blankets. We got out Google Sky Map and we started, trying to find things in it. But it was so majestic and so wonderful. And it was one of the best experiences of prayer. I think that's what prayer is. When our minds are turned to awe and wonder, and our hearts are filled with praise so much that they're just overflowing and we can't contain it. And the joy is indescribable. I just think that's what it is. And that's what the psalmist is talking about. Looking at the night sky can do that for you. But even if we don't have an opportunity to go and look at the night sky, there are other things that will do the same for us. We live in a state with beautiful mountains. Whenever we get the opportunity and we go and look at the mountains, can I do it? It does for me. When I think of the majesty of the creation of the mountains and all their glory and beauty, or the mighty power of the waves of the ocean, when I look at things like that, I think, how majestic is thy name in all of the earth. But even if we can't get out all the time and look at the night sky, we still have street lights and Sterling to blind us on. But I can see a lot more of it here than I could have ever in Denver. But even if we're not out looking at the night sky, or we aren't at the mountains for a weekend to see the glory and the majesty of God, all we got to do is look right next to us, the person that God has created, with all their complexity and beauty and wonder and awesomeness. And we will say, Lord, how majestic is your name in all of the earth. God has created so much, 95%, which is invisible to us. That's why quantum physicists say there's dimensions and multiverses and all sorts of things in the invisible matter. But it's just tremendous. And when we stop to think about all of that, we may ask, as the psalmist did, why? Why did you give us life? And more than that, not only did you give us life, but you have invested us with glory and power. Why? Why? Rulers of the seas and the skies and the animals. I don't particularly like the translation rulers because it's not what Genesis says. We're appointed as partners with God in his work of creation to take care of all that he has made. We should do a better job of that. As a father, I don't know that I spend enough time with the night sky, the mountains, or even especially the wondrous, complex, beautiful, magnificent creation of my children before me. And I do wish I could have more time. Consider what a magnificent gift I have to give. What a magnificent gift. I'm so busy trying to take care of them and raise them. I think about how special. I wonder if they're on special days. When he just came in and it was my father's day. Pounded on my bedroom door. I opened it up. Happy Father's Day, Papa. And then I got hugs and kisses. It's the wonder that joy of that. It's just, I can't say anything except, oh Lord, how majestic is your name in all of the earth. Fathers, God has blessed you with great things. I never understood fathers who ran out on that. Like the one I told you about previously, I never understood. But you know, the vast majority of fathers, they're good fathers. They try hard. They make a lot of mistakes. But they do the best they can because the first moment they know they're trying. They knew that God was real and the Lord was majestic in all of the earth. Got a special song. It's actually Psalm 8, the music read, sung by Sandy Tapper.